What's good, everybody? And welcome to this week's episode of the Battleground of Bad Opinions podcast. It's your boy Andy, and on the other side of me is our main man Josh. And this week
Going.
we're gonna have just a regular episode, just be me and Josh shooting the stuff a little bit. We got Josh's one of his child army joining us here if you're watching on YouTube. And today we got some new segments for you guys. And I think Josh wanted to start with what'd you call this one?
What the IRL is happening? But basically,
You
a
trying to
discussion
be
of.
trendy.
I'm trying. Basically, just what's happening, not connected to the group. Kind of like last week, we discussed the Flash. We discussed a few things, but just things that aren't being highlighted on Facebook that we can talk about that we've been observing.
Gotcha. So I assume since you're coming up with new segments, you're coming up with topics for these, or am I going to do
I do.
think up something for you?
No, I got you. But yeah, hitting back on the Flash, we talked about how it was bombing last time. Just an update. We thought, it was going to make 70 million its first weekend, peter out at 150, 200 million. It has crashed much further than that. It's at 103 million right now, making less than a million a day. It's not going to make 120 million. It's going to be one of the biggest box office flops in a while.
You'd love to see it.
Right. Yeah. And it was
Remember,
so much
people.
talk.
Go ahead.
There were so many people talking about how it was the best Batman movie. It was all this stuff, and people would go see it because of the good word of mouth, and that has not occurred. The movie has completely. I mean, I think it's in like 12th right now in the box office. Also, it took 4 days for a 2-week-old Spider-Man to start outgrossing it again.
Well,
Spider-Man,
the court of public opinion, man.
Yeah,
it's just how it goes, and people vote with their wallets. So
right. And
that's something to remember, guys. If you don't like something, and I'm not, boycotts generally don't work, but when we do vote with our wallets, this is what happens.
Right. A little bit of morality goes a long way. Spider-Verse, by the way, has cleared 350 million, I believe. Which
you also love to see that.
Yeah, I think it's no longer debatable if Spider-Man has passed Batman as the biggest IP in movies. And probably
absolutely.
In comic books too. I know they've probably been the biggest two since the 70s. I don't know when Superman officially started to peter out, but like after I get them confused. What was the most recent MCU Spider-Man? Was it No Way Home or Far From Home?
Yeah, No Way Home.
No Way Home. After that movie made 800 million, I think, in America, I think we're pretty much established that Spider-Man's bigger than Batman.
I mean, I think it's Spider-Man saved comic book movies as it is. I mean, shout out Blade, but Spider-Man saved comic book movies, so it just makes sense. He's the most recognizable character out there in the superhero realm. I think he has been for decades now.
A funny story about that. I don't know why I just thought of this, but I read a book a couple years ago about the history of Marvel and what it did to movies. And when Sony bought Spider-Man, they paid $20 million for the Spider-Man character. When they bought that, Marvel, whoever owned Marvel Comics at that time, offered the other like characters, like non-X-Men characters, to throw in with Spider-Man for only $5 million more, and they turned it down. So they could have bought every Avenger. They could have bought the Avengers for $5 million.
But you got to kind of be glad they didn't, because there's every chance in the world they would have just fumbled that shit. So
yeah, I think Sony did. I don't want to. No, Fox. Fox did Fantastic Four, right? I can't remember.
Yeah, that was Fox.
Yeah. And to me, Fantastic Four and Avengers were kind of on the same level until the movies.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing with Avengers, though, is like Iron Man was a C-list superhero. The only people who really knew who Iron Man were kids watching Disney XD or whatever your version of that Disney Channel was. If you're watching the YouTube, or if you're listening to us and not watching on YouTube, Josh's kid's still here and give us cute little waves. So go ahead and give her a wave back. But like only people who really knew Iron Man were people who played like Marvel versus Capcom, really liked comic books, or had seen him on the kids shows. It wasn't mainstream at all.
I agree. Yeah, I didn't know anything about Iron Man until the movie came out.
And
I was 18.
So you were 18. Well, I mean, I guess I was a few years younger than you. I mean, I knew who he was, but again, I was a gamer and then played Marvel versus Capcom. So,
Yeah.
Ultra cannon. All right, so
Since we are generally cynical people, let's talk about another box office crash that's happened in the last month. Pixar's new movie came out, Elemental, and it is also sitting at about $100 million, which is horrendous for a Pixar movie.
well, it's worth noting that I didn't even know Pixar had a new movie coming out. And
Right.
I say coming out, then you told me about this before the podcast, and I said, all right, I'll do a little bit of research. And so I Google, and even Googling, you cannot immediately tell that this movie is out yet because this movie is already out.
This movie's been out for 2 weeks at least.
Yeah, I did not know that off of, I Googled new Pixar movie and it did not say out 2 weeks ago on anything that I looked at. I just happened to scroll to the bottom of a page and it showed me the date that it released.
So, yeah, there's a whole lot going on with Pixar, but I think the best conversation to have is the Disneyfication, made up that word, of Pixar. What's happened to Pixar? So, brief history of Pixar. After Lion King, I can't remember their names, like Ratzberger and Katzenberg, or there's two people that built the Disney Renaissance. One of them was really into, they were both wanted to go into computer animation, but they both had to find people to fund them, as Disney decided they weren't going that way. So Disney was going to stick it out with traditional animation. And so one of them went and found Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis and Universal Studios, and they said, yeah, we'll fund you. We'll make your studio. That became DreamWorks. The other one went to a company that had worked on a computer animation program for computers that had never became anything, and that was Apple. And Steve Jobs immediately became interested in making movies. So the Apple-owned Pixar movies before they sold to Disney are Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Toy Story 2, Monsters, Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, and Cars. Ratatouille, Wall-E, and Up were made after the sale, were made already, but were put out after the sale of Disney. Those are the movies you think of when you think of Pixar. Those are the Pixar movies. They're smart. They hit an adult audience. They're beautifully animated. They strike a chord.
That is undeniably the Pixar pantheon.
Right. Since then, we've had a couple that hit that. I would say Inside Out, Soul. Those are really good movies that hit that same.
Which again, we talked about this earlier. I didn't realize that it had been almost 10 years since Inside Out came out.
Yeah. But since, let me count real quick. 2, 3. There have been 8 Pixar sequels since then, with 0 before. And there have been Brave, which is basically a Disney movie. I love it. It's a Disney princess movie. Merida is literally a princess.
Brave is the first one I missed out on. I think it's important to note as we have this conversation, I have watched every Pixar movie up to about 2011. I think 11 is up, I believe, and that is the last one I remember cognitively trying to watch. Now, I have seen a couple since, like Toy Story 4 and a couple of the others, but they're all sequels. I have watched almost none of the new.
Yeah. So Toy Story 3 came out right after Up, and that was the start of sequel besides Toy Story 2. Toy Story 2 was a Pixar sequel, but that was when they were still trying to get funding. So since then, we've had 8 sequels. We've had Inside Out, Soul, Turning Red, maybe, that are like classics. Coco, I really like Coco. But then you've got like Brave, which isn't really a Pixar movie. Turning Red, maybe a Pixar movie. And now we're just at a point where there is no real difference between Pixar and Disney. Like Disney put out Encanto and Moana, and like both of those could be Pixar movies.
See, I definitely would have said that Encanto was a Pixar movie. That's what I would have thought.
I was certain it was. But like Luca, and like Luca's the one that everybody talks about as being Disney-fied.
See, I don't even know what that movie is.
So, Luca is a movie about a merman coming out of the water and being a regular boy and trying to hide the fact that he's a merman with his friend who's also a merman. It's obviously, to me, all an allegory for a homosexual relationship. It's all how
Hold
for
on.
being
Was
gay.
this not a Disney Channel original movie like fucking 20 years ago? I feel like there was something very similar to this on.
I was 13 with one of the Lawrence brothers. I don't know how I remember that, but yes, very similar to that.
Okay, okay.
Luca's set in Italy. It's a really well done movie. So a couple months ago, when the whole "Don't Say Gay" Disney dispute went on, Disney was like, "We're not going to support somebody that that suppresses the LGBTQ plus movement." Pixar was like, "Well, that's really funny because you made us change the end of our movie because we had a gay couple in it." And everybody was guessing what the couple was. It has to be Luca. And if Luca ends
Okay,
with
I have to
him,
step away for 1 second. I had said something about it being a Disney Channel original movie, and you said it's very similar.
right? So yeah, Luca is the one that's gotten the most attention for being a Disney-fied Pixar movie because it has the basis for a Pixar movie. You're talking about mermen and becoming people, and there's all these like little jokes and all this stuff, but they didn't hit the ending because in the end, like it's just kind of nothing, and you can kind of tell that it doesn't really Pixar itself. You could say Inside Out, like Coco's really well done. Inside Out's really well done. Lately, it's just been let's try something, and if it hits, it hits. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Lightyear was incredibly boring, but the biggest problem with Lightyear is no one knew what the movie was. There was no explanation of what Lightyear was about. Lightyear was.
Okay, I thought Lightyear was going to be a series. I didn't know that it was out yet. This is the problem with these Pixar movies, and I'll said it. I've said it before, and I guess I'll say it again now. They're not doing anything to promote them. You find out it's almost Disney movies in general. It's like they just assume we all not only have but actively watch Disney Plus.
Right.
There's no promotion. You don't. So if they have a good one, it's gonna fail or flop anyways because we don't know to go see the damn thing.
Yeah, you're very spot on, and I wondered when that happened because I feel like Finding Dory, looking at Incredibles 2 is the highest grossing animated movie ever. So that one had a lot of backing and support. Toy Story 4 was huge. I feel like after Toy Story 4, like I don't feel like there was no promotion. Like Onward came out the week that COVID hit. So that one's a little different. Yeah. But
I barely remember hype reels for Toy Story 4. Like I remember hearing it was coming, but I don't even think I watched it opening. I think I watched it opening year, to be honest with you. I might have been a thing I just got around to.
That movie and whether or not we needed it is an entirely different discussion. But you're right. Like I haven't seen a trailer for Elemental, and I don't know if like Disney doesn't want to advertise like on digital platforms, like they don't want to pay Facebook or Google prices, or if they just think that they have enough of a network built that they don't have to, and maybe they're right. What was the last big hit they had? Like Toy Story 4 was big, but that was Toy Story. Like that's different.
And it's not groundbreaking. It's not new. It's Up's the last one.
Yeah, Up almost won the Oscar that year. I don't know how big you were into the Oscars, but it was a Oscar nominated Best Picture movie. It was that big. And then Toy Story 3 was huge when it came out, but that's Toy Story.
Again, yeah, Toy Story.
Yeah, Finding Dory was Finding Nemo.
It's Nemo.
Inside Out was big. Inside Out probably is their only big hit of the last 10 years. Like looking at the list, even Coco, which is Incredibles 2. I forgot about Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
Again,
Coco. Coco is I haven't watched Coco, but I know enough about it. I know how significant it is in the zeitgeist. I haven't watched it yet.
But I mean, Coco didn't make much money, like compared to these other movies. And like, I don't know. I think you're right. I think you nailed it. When I started this, I wanted to talk about how Disney has dulled the impact of a Pixar movie and taken the magic from Pixar. But I really think you're right that they've just stopped advertising them. Like, and we talked about it before we got on air, but the biggest thing that Pixar gave Disney is the technology to make these computer animated films, which they used to make Tangled, Frozen, Wreck-It Ralph, and Moana start their new transition after their nadir with Atlantis and Treasure Planet and Bolt and these other movies that are fine but didn't do great. Like they weren't Disney.
See, I remember sizzle reels for Bolt. I remember hype for all of the, even ones that have come out in the last few years. I remember seeing some sort of promotion for them.
Yeah,
It's
for
almost
sure.
like Disney wants you to stop thinking of Pixar when you think animation and just think Disney.
I
Which I
definitely
mean,
think that
in
that's part of
business
it.
run, cool, but that's like it's pretty fucked up, shady business right there.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think they got their money back from Pixar by melting what they could out of Toy Story, Incredibles. Like they melted the sequels, they melted the franchises that were already built for what they had, and so the originals are Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Incredibles, Cars, and then they bought it. They put out a sequel to all those movies. Like they took the goodwill, they drained it for what they could. They've sold all the Buzz Lightyear toys they can, and they took the technology and basically used it to up Disney, which was falling way behind. So there's this idea that Pixar is like the king, and I don't think it is. I think that Pixar's lost its magic. Even though some of these movies are good, I just don't. I think that Disney killed Pixar.
I mean, who's to say when Disney bought Pixar, how many of the people that made Pixar didn't get shuffled into Disney animation? I mean, there might be
Right.
3 people on that team that were on that team
Yeah,
when it all started.
I'd really like to look up the agreement and see what it was like because it was actually Steve Jobs who approached Disney to sell because he was trying to sell at the peak. But I don't know. It's an interesting discussion to
That's,
me.
I mean, but that is part of the Disneyfication of things, though. I mean, look at every single project that Disney has bought. It has its hitters and it has lots of shitty misses that I mean, and I also will say Disney has banked on that Star Wars purchase. That's where all of their
Sure have.
advertising goes. That's where all of their promotion goes. But even then, it's the same fucking thing. I really liked Mando season 1, and I had not watched a TV show in years at that point. Mando
Right.
season 2 is pretty good. I'm not watching Book of fucking Boba Fett because one, it just wasn't that good. But you're not going to get me to go watch another story so that I can then come back to watch the show that you sold me on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I can't keep up with the like I watched every MCU movie through Endgame, just like everybody else. I'm not unique in that. Once they started TV shows, I was like, yeah, I'll catch up
Well,
on
no,
things
you're
because this
not
is
unique in that because that's how everything was mainline. That's how you go to the movies to see these movies. There was no convolution with it. And for the most
right.
part, you could miss one or two and it wouldn't be a big deal. You
Mhm.
can't with this new Disney strategy of we're going to pump all of our story. They're multiversing everything. And I don't even mean in just the actual sense of how they are using the multiverse shit, but they're making it where you have to watch 95 different things to keep up with something.
It's basically hitting the whales of the fandom, and it's so to me it's short sighted. To me, the thing that made MCU special was it was the one thing we had that was not short sighted. And now everything they use is basically we're going to run this dry and move on. And I think they're going to do the same to Pixar. Like I don't see Pixar being the brand that it is in 10 years. I don't see MCU being the brand it is today than it was before COVID. I just don't. I don't know. The whole Disneyfication thing is real and like it's not as malevolent as some people think. I think that they're just interested in making the stakeholders happy. Hey,
That's the thing. It's they're getting more homogenous, and what will make us our safe dollars, and what's going to kill it is us as a society. Us growing up, people our age are very anti that, and we do vote with our wallets. You know, boomers and Gen X kind of, but not so much. People our age and this fucking youngins coming up now, they will stop giving you fucking money if you don't give us the products that we want the way that we will have them described to us and fell in love with
right.
them. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, you're gonna see Pixar die out if they keep doing this. I mean, I keep hearing they have some hitters though, so it might not hit Pixar as quickly, but your MCU is gonna be fucking dead in 5 more years. Promise you.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I like the new MCU movies personally, the ones I've seen, but I watched Thor Love and Thunder like a week ago. I watched Multiverse of Madness like a month ago. Like, I don't know. With me being in the phase of my life that I am, I can make plans to go see 2 to 3 movies a year. I could be like, all right, May, July, November, I'm going to go see a movie. You know, it might be the only movies I see that year, and that's what MCU had. They had a
Yeah.
monoculture, but those were the 3 movies I was going to see. Like, I wasn't going to miss No Way Home and Endgame and whatever else.
I mean,
I
that's
don't know.
I just saw one of my I'm gonna see this for a couple of movies a year I'm gonna get to see was we took the kids to see Spider Verse. Like
Yeah.
that's how it is for people our age, especially because we can't. I saw something talk about earlier how like we don't do a lot of the things because we got priced out of them. We can't fucking afford to go to the movie theater all the time.
Yeah.
And yes, there are the special deals where you like, oh, you pay $20, you can go. Some people who really like the movies that much, that's worth it. But it's not to
Yeah.
everybody else. And so I'm gonna have to pick 3 movies to go see a year. And you know how you get me to do that? Show me the fucking movie.
Right. There's got to be some kind of conversation ahead of time. There's got to be something. Like, I get it. Like, Pixar's mostly for kids, but I don't know. I'm not paying $70 to go take my kids to see a movie I know nothing about. Like, you can advertise to parents. I don't know. It
You know what's going to be the
hard.
biggest grossing movie of the summer? Fucking Barbie. You know why? Because we know it exists and it hits the nostalgia cues and we can take our kids to see it and it's going to interest us too. But if these movies stop hitting both those targets, you got to interest the adults too. And they're not telling us about them. I mean, sure, we'll catch it on Disney Plus if we happen to see it in the recommended one day. But you're not going to make money that way.
You know what the biggest movie this year is? I don't know if you're aware. It's Mario. And it's not even close.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I guess I can't say I forgot, but I already forgot Mario happened.
Right. But you had a brand that everybody loved. You don't have saturated content in the movie verse. You had parents that love it. And I saw it everywhere. Like, the cast getting announced was a big deal.
Yeah.
The trailers were a big deal. The song was a big deal. They branded it instead of just, here you go. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Mario hit. Why did Mario hit? Why didn't Elementals?
Well, we have an entire conversation that when we haven't entered the battleground, that's going to be one of those things that we end up talking about. Is because you didn't believe in the power of goddamn video games until the Mario movie.
No, I didn't. I mean, history says that they just don't succeed until Mario. I think the biggest one was Tomb Raider. Like, the Sonic games were decent hits.
Well, that's because you have to. It's what they picked though. Historically, they've picked games that don't make great fucking movies, and Mario was an open enough game that I will go see a Mario movie because they could do anything with that. There's only so much you can do with a Tomb Raider movie, you know?
Yeah. Or I know there was an Assassin's Creed movie a couple years ago, but I didn't.
Oh no, that was fucking. I didn't see it either, but I heard it was goddamn horrible. I knew I wasn't going to see it as soon as I saw the animus in the promotion. And that's the other thing you have to remember with video games. People will go see video game movies. The power of video games is there. It's that when they take and bastardize those video games when they make the movies and then blatantly show us in the promotion, we just don't go see it. So you haven't had one that did it right until the Mario movie. And we all saw those previews and we're like, this is worth my $7 or 12, 14, whatever.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I remember seeing Prince of Persia when it came out and it was terrible.
Okay, I like that movie. Fuck you. It's one of my guilty pleasure movies.
I liked it, but as a Prince of Persia movie, it wasn't good, if that makes sense.
Oh, no. And they probably shouldn't have cast Jake Gyllenhaal as
I was about to say, Jake Gyllenhaal that movie all up.
Very much so.
We got to get going or we're not going to be able to finish this podcast. It's going to be an hour and a half.
All
right. So talk of the group. We're running the Kathy Bates tournament right now. I'll keep it short and sweet. She's great. She's a fantastic actress who never gets her flowers.
I did not realize who she was until I saw she is one of those. Oh, that's her. I love her actresses.
Right. Everybody remembers her from some movie. She's actually been in a ton of great ones. Just a backstory. When I make these tournaments, typically if I can get an actor to 32, that's impressive. Like Denzel Washington and Tom Hanks were at 32 for a tournament. She got to 32 pretty easily. I mean, B Movie's the last movie that made the cut.
Oh shit. Did you just
got hit?
For our listeners, if this makes the cut, Josh just got please make the cut with this, Megan. Josh just got bombarded with what looked like a book from off screen.
It was a book. It was a little notebook.
So maybe that's the kids telling us to shut the fuck up. But that was hilarious.
But yeah, not much to say about Kathy Bates. She's been great. She's always going to be great. I love her when she's a small role. A lot of her movies are smaller roles, but the ones that she's been the lead in are some of the best movies ever, including Misery, which brought me to the question that I've thought about since I made this tournament. what is the best performance in a Stephen King adaptation? Because Stephen King makes movies that are a little all over the place, but it really gives the actors a chance to chew on some scenery and put in a performance. The four that I've got that come to mind first are Kathy Bates in Misery, Michael Clark Duncan in The Green Mile, Morgan Freeman in Shawshank Redemption, or if you like Tim Robbins in Shawshank Redemption, both of those are excellently done, and Jack Nicholson in The Shining. That's my Mount Rushmore. I'm sure. I've been thinking about it, and like Michael Clark Duncan's performance is really emotional, and Morgan Freeman's performance is really like powerful. But I feel like the acting that Kathy Bates does in Misery is way, it's just way better to me. I think it's one of the best performances ever.
All right, so of the roles that you have picked, off of I don't know this. I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. Kathy Bates is the main fucking character there, essentially. Like she is on screen, focus of the story, giving us a performance. A lot of that movie. Whereas a lot of these others, they are still the main character, but they're not necessarily stage center the whole time. You know, like
yeah, you're
a
right.
lot of Michael Clark Duncan. You know, it's the story. The Green Mile is about him, but it's also about Tom Hanks as the fucking guard, and you get the perspective looking at Michael Clark Duncan, not from Michael Clark Duncan's perspective a lot. Where Misery more takes place just standing over these two. But I have a hidden number fucking 5 here for you, and it's Seth MacFarlane in the Family Guy adaptation of the fucking Stephen King
You're talking
things.
about the trilogy where they
Yes.
parodied Shawshank,
Misery, and damn it, they do one more. My cats are tearing hell down over here. They do Shawshank, Misery. Damn it, what is the third one they do?
Is it Stand By Me? I don't think it is, but that's the biggest one of his other movies.
It might be The Shining. I think they might do The Shining.
I
They
think you're
do
right.
because
It is
Stewie
The
goes
Shining
down the hallway and tells
on
the
the
two
bicycle.
girls to, yep. But more importantly, it's the Shawshank one and the Misery ones that he does that are actually really fucking good adaptations.
They're really good parodies. The Seth MacFarlane, I'm not a big Family Guy person, but his parodies are phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm not huge on like any of that humor anymore, but I mean, The Simpsons did it first, obviously, but I specifically picked the Family Guy ones for this because of how well done they were.
I'm trying to remember who was on the poster that they poke through. And like I remember Peter like poking his finger through it. Because I don't think it was
the posters like you poke into an ass, I believe. I just can't remember whose ass it is.
Yeah, I don't remember either. That was good. And the oh my gosh. The instead of hitting it on the thunder, he hits the stone on the Tune to Friends.
Yeah.
That is really good.
And it happened to be Taco Night that was escaping on.
I remember that.
Yeah, no, it was just
it's well done for sure. That's a good one. All right. So let's get to our big post of the week. Somebody posted the other day, who would win in a fight, Mike Tyson or Bruce Lee? What are your thoughts?
Bruce Lee. And we only have about 6 minutes left to do this, so I'm going to give you about a minute and a half rundown of it. But at one point, Bruce Lee was kicking so fucking fast that they had to slow him down in post just so that it would translate to an audience on camera. And yes, Mike has one hit KO power, one of the baddest motherfuckers to ever live. But Mike's fight experience is, for the most part, regulated under rules, just the same as Bruce Lee. So when everybody's like, well, Bruce Lee only has so many fights and Mike has so many more. Bruce Lee's fights, you can fucking hit the motherfucker anywhere, for the most part. You can hit from here, which is waist level, for the folks that can't see me, to forehead in a boxing match. You can't hit in the back of the head. You can't grab a hold of some bitch. I just don't think with someone with the skills that Bruce Lee has, the speed that Bruce Lee has, And I mean, dude, he was small, but I guarantee you, strong as a goddamn ox for his size. Once he just gets close enough, start putting hands and grabbing Mike Tyson, I just don't think Mike Tyson knows what to do, especially once he gets a hold of his neck. Game over. Now, that said, if he does just land that one good shot in the stomach or that one good shot to the head, it's fucking over. But that's why you have to look at fights. You can't really look at them at the sense of, this person's going to win just because they have these skills. You got to look at it like an out of 10 thing. And sure, I'll give it to Mike 2 out of 10. He's going to hit that knockout punch 2 out of 10. Most of the time, a fight, as someone who's been in a fuck ton of them, and I don't mean the spandexed ones in the ring, it's generally who knows more and who stays calmer. And Mike's a crazy cocaine-headed motherfucker. He would have just tried, I'm just going to beat this little guy up. And Bruce Lee would have folded that motherfucker like a pretzel.
That's where I landed too. The size difference is huge. Obviously, size matters in a fight. I'm not denying that. And Mike Tyson without gloves would probably, end somebody. But he only has that one move. And like, I just feel like in a octagon or whatever, if Bruce Lee can kick, he has so many more opportunities to hit Tyson that Tyson doesn't know how to stop. And I don't know. Like, I want to give Tyson his credit because Tyson was a very impressive fighter, but
one of the baddest motherfuckers to ever live, son, and crazy to back it up too.
And he punches way harder than anyone ever, but a kick can make up for that difference. People can kick really hard.
One kick to the knee. One fucking monkey punch up underneath his goddamn armpit. And now he's just got a 40-pound log hanging off his shoulder that's going to do no good once fucking Bruce Lee puts 45 paws upside his forehead.
Yeah. And both of these people grew up fighting a lot. So I'm not saying that neither one of them know how to street fight. They obviously can. They're two of the scariest people to ever live. But I just trust Bruce Lee's training more to be.
I mean, you're talking about a guy who trained to fight in a controlled environment versus a guy who made his own martial art around fucking up people that were bigger and badder than him.
And Tyson never really had to learn how to counter. He was just that good. And that's evident by how his career went once he lost a match. He was always just bigger and stronger. And that goes a long way. I'm not denying that. But I just don't think that it's going to be enough in a actual octagon fight, which leads to my next question. How do you think these two people's UFC careers will be?
Tyson would have done really good if he trained outside of just boxing in the heavyweight division. But I mean, it's UFC and MMA in general is a really hard thing to compare other people to, because we keep seeing these MMA fighters go do these celebrity boxing matches against guys like Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul and whatnot, and they're getting beat the fuck up for the most part because it's boxing. But when you can start grabbing a hold of motherfuckers, the game changes.
Yeah.
It's just like to snowball into our next one. We got the billionaire beatdown that everybody's been talking about. And whether you like Elon Musk or whether you like Zuckerberg, and I hate both the motherfuckers, fuck them both, fucking Zuckerberg is going to follow me now, beat the shit out of Elon Musk if they actually get into a cage fight. Because Zuckerberg actually rolls. He actually trains Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he does it with some of the best motherfuckers on the planet for fun. This is his hobby. Elon Musk sleeps on couches at Twitter to try and look good. Not to be that guy, but that nerd is going to get beat the fuck up. It's game over.
It's going to be one move. It's going to be just like every other novice that Zuckerberg is going to know. He only has to know one thing because Musk knows zero. Musk knows zero counters to that one thing that Zuckerberg learned from Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that puts Musk's arm behind his back. I mean, I just
don't think Elon Musk has ever been hit in the fucking face before.
Right.
And the thing with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is when they roll, like, your life is in another dude's hands a lot of the time, especially when they're a lot better. And he, Zuckerberg's got that feeling already. And no matter how much training Musk does between now and then, if they actually do it, and even if he does get hit in the face, he's not going to get hit in the face competitively. And once that happens, he's going to fucking panic, because that's like being told no for the first time times a million.
The Mike Tyson quote: "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face."
So, yeah, man. I mean, and here's the thing. We all want to see this billionaire beatdown happen. But last I checked, Musk had pushed out saying that his mom would look
Mommy.
down on it. So I don't think it's going to happen now. But God damn it, I wish it would. Like that's something I would pay $59.99 to watch. Fuck a Logan Paul fight. I want to see two billionaires in blood sport.
I would love to see the list of things that Elon Musk looks down on him for.
Now, the fight that it does look like we're going to get is the short, but no longer short, but whatever you want to call it, status updater website. Because now, not only do we have Twitter, which is the sinking ship that I am just enjoying taking the ride down on, versus Threads, which is the Zuck's answer to it, which apparently you have told me is not trying to be Twitter, but is more trying to be TikTok Twitter.
Yeah,
which fuck that.
It's really interesting. You don't curate your own feed. It gives you what they think you want. So it's using the same algorithm that TikTok uses, which is basically, if you're in control, you're going to hate yourself. We'll give you what you want, and you're going to enjoy it. Which,
like I said, that works for videos, but I'm going to end up looking at texts that make me mad, and then I'm just going to get more mad feed.
Right. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that I don't know, it's going to be so hard to make Threads work for you. And like, they keep talking about all the users that are on there and all that stuff. I think I have like 30 Instagram friends on there. That's the other thing, is you have to have Instagram to get on there right now, which is not a problem because a lot of people do have Instagram.
But apparently if you delete your Threads, you delete your Instagram too.
Yeah, you can deactivate Threads, but you can't delete it. So it's there. But
fuck that.
It's funny. Everybody complains when they get TikTok because the first like 3 days is just like the most boring, like bland stuff.
Generic fucking awful videos.
So that's kind of what the Threads experience is like, except instead of like, I don't know, some heartwarming video of a kid, meeting his dad who came home, it's not Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg tweets. Threads. I'm so sorry, Zuck. Please forgive me for my sins. But Zuckerberg, I don't think a single thread that he's posted made me think less that he's a robot, because they're completely like it's literally Chat GPT thread, the thread edition. He's like, no socks for life. Or it's him laying in the floor with his baby, looking at it like he's about to eat it. It's
yeah, I'll pass on that one, and I think the podcast will too.
Yeah.
Now we do have some other competitors though, because you've got Blue Sky, which is made by Jack Dorsey, who created Twitter, and I guess whatever team he's put together. And it looks like a 1-to-1 replica of Twitter. So I'm excited. I'm just secured us a code for the podcast today. Shout out Casey. Thank you,
Casey. I'm curious about Blue Sky, because when Twitter launched in 2009, it played the angle of being the other option to Facebook. And that worked in 2009 because not everybody was online. Not everybody wanted social media. And B, Facebook was really the only one around. I'm just curious how that works today, because, TikTok's huge. YouTube is huge. I'm just curious how they're like, I feel like Blue Sky, like the post that got posted today was Blue Sky making fun of Threads, which makes sense. Threads is kind of soulless, but I don't know that marketing yourself as the anti-Facebook is a big enough market anymore. Does that make sense?
I think it's not going to do that. I don't think that's how it'll do it. I think it's going to market itself as Twitter.
Yeah.
For the people who miss Twitter. Because even me, I didn't come along on Twitter until, let's say, 2016. So after it had really turned into a dumpster fire. And because I knew it was a dumpster fire, I had very carefully curated what's in my feed. And until recently with the For You shit that Muscadine wannabe wine, implemented. I never saw anything that I didn't like on Twitter unless it was somebody whose opinion I had picked out and wanted to hear, retweeted it and gave their spin on it. And then I'd be like, oh, yeah, I like that. Fuck that guy. Fuck that person, whoever, whatever.
And
And so I think Twitter will be, or not Twitter, Blue Sky will allow you to go back to that because only people that are on it are people who actually want to interact with, a Twitter-like platform that is very much the same as before. And at least until they open it up to general public, you're gonna get very nice, very well curated feeds.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense. And I think the thing that made Twitter great was Twitter was great if you had a community and you wanted to see that community exist in its own place.
Well, that's why I use Twitter. Like everybody always talks about it's a cesspool, and I always fight back with y'all on that, but it's because I joined a community and all I saw in my feed was that community.
Right. Yeah. And I went into Twitter kind of blind. I joined Twitter in 2011 and I left in 2019. But when I went in, I didn't really have that structure. And I didn't really have any friends that were on there. I kind of joined like sports that I liked, musicians, stuff like that, and tried to find communities. And it was great for what it was, but it all just turned into a cesspool. And you really have to have that previously curated group that you're going in with before you get in. And I think that Elon wants to get away from that because I think that Elon wants it to kind of be his thing and his group. Like,
I think he went into it banking that he was going to have that popularity that he had back when we all still thought Elon was a cool guy and was not expecting the sheer amount of just like, we don't like you, go home, hate. He got out of Twitter and now he's just burning the bitch to the ground.
So have I told you my theory about why he bought Twitter?
I think you have, but tell the group.
So maybe 2 years ago, Elon Musk was obviously the richest person in the world. All of his money is banked. It's net worth. All of his money is banked in the performance of the stocks for Tesla, the Boring Company, SpaceX, etc. There was an article that picked up steam on Twitter that cost him like $6 million in one day because it bankrupted the stock because it was a story about how he treated workers and all that stuff. A lot of people sold out. I think that he sees Twitter as the only place that allows journalism to thrive today. You don't see journalists on TikTok. Facebook's, community, Facebook's algorithm doesn't promote journalists. YouTube, everybody only sees what they want to. Twitter is the only place that still wants journalism promoted, which at the time was through the blue check marks, which has now been,
fucking erased.
Right. So whatever advantage they had there, he erased. And I think he is purposely driving Twitter into the ground because at $44 billion, I still think it's worth more money if news doesn't have a source to get their it doesn't have a way to get their source out there. Because like, I'm not subscribing to New York Times. I mean, I have before, but if I can see the tweets, like if I see news, it's usually in Twitter form still today because Twitter, and I hope that Blue Sky does this too, because Jack Dorsey's always believed in it. They were big on promoting journalism and media and what they offered and putting them on a little bit of a pedestal, which a lot of people hated. A lot of people, there's a mainstream media backlash, which is understood. There's valid reasons for that. But I think it's valuable that we have somebody in place to check these out of control billionaires. I mean, I posted it one day a couple of years ago, but in one day, Elon Musk made more money in net worth than the fictional Batman and Iron Man's net worth was combined at their peaks. He made
there's my favorite comparison is Smog, however you want to say it.
Right.
Forbes estimated their fucking net worth at one time, and it was somewhere in like the $40 to $50 billion range. And this is a literal mountain of fucking gold. 50, 60 billion, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Compared to at the time, I think when this meme or Reddit thread or whatever it was made, Musk had like 144 billion. And there were like 6 people between where Smaug would be and Musk.
Yep. Yeah. I want to say Musk got up to like 300 billion net worth, which,
I think you're right.
That's not real money, but it is what it is.
It doesn't matter. It's money that could be lost.
Mm-hmm.
It's money that was sitting in a stock portfolio or something somewhere. And it's it's so hard to realize what a billion is.
Right.
I saw someone talking about this today. It's like something like 5,000 seconds is like 12 hours, but $5 billion is like 32 fucking days.
Yeah. I've seen the similar thing. Like a million seconds is like a couple weeks, and a billion seconds is like 30 years or something like that.
Or, yeah, it was like a million seconds is 12 minutes, and a billion is 32 days. And
Yeah.
you would have to, if you made $1 a minute or $1 a second, every second, it would take you 32 years to acquire 1 billion fucking dollars.
I've seen the one that's like if Jesus Christ was born working a minimum wage job, except he worked that job 24/7,
he would still not be a billionaire today.
Yeah.
It's why I actually fuck this. I'm gonna make this real quick because we didn't last time. It's why you can't ethically be a billionaire, because you cannot put out enough labor or labor value to physically get to that number without stealing from somebody else's labor value.
Yeah, the damage you're doing, the damage you're doing to the country is greater than whatever good you're doing. There's no way around it. Like, the world we live in today, that level of income inequality is harmful.
Like, it's okay to be super wealthy. You can achieve super wealth ethically. It's hard, but it happens. You can't ethically become a billionaire. You just can't.
All right, I agree. I agree completely. And yeah, I mean that's where we're at.
Like, and that's why it's okay to want to watch them beat the fuck out of each other in a cage.
And it's okay to make the memes about the submarines falling.
The submarines. It's just like, it's not that they're not people, but they're not people. They're not. We are not in the same world, and that's why it's
completely different worlds. Yeah, I agree with you. So
all right, so you got one last thing before we wrap this up. You got this big idea for us, and I kind of like the way that you described it to me. So why don't you pitch it to everybody else real quick?
So one thing about me, I'm sure everybody in the group understands, podcast is going to know soon enough, is I like to sit down and hyperfixate on something that's kind of pointless. I focus on it for weeks at a time, and I feel like this is a good opportunity for us to be able to get it out to the public, and I get a chance to do what I like. So today's hyperfixation is on pop culture in 2013 and what the world was like in 2013 compared to today, as far as what survived or what was prospering in the world of pop culture. Because I think 2013 was the end of an era. I think it was the end of non-intersectional development of products.
See, we had a third co-host. We just didn't know.
All right. 2013 was the end of intersectionality. And I think it's interesting to examine what happened, because this was only 10 years ago, and how different culture was at this point compared to today. So I made a list. The biggest songs of 2013 were Thrift Shop by Macklemore, Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke, a horribly problematic song in every way. Radioactive. Yeah. That song was huge, and I don't think enough people talk about how big it was.
One of the greatest catfishes of all time. Also has one of the greatest remixes of all time that almost nobody's ever heard.
I've never heard it.
They did a live performance. I want to say it was at the VMAs. Is it one of the ones that used to be super prominent and is not anymore?
Talk about the VMAs.
And they did it with Lil Wayne. And Lil Wayne put down one of the best Lil Wayne ass verses you have ever heard.
I feel like I remember that.
On that beat. They performed together. You can find it on YouTube. It's better than the original. And it's just fucking fire. And nobody ever talks about it.
Yeah. That song in general was horrible, and it would never get big today. But Robin Thicke was the next big thing at the time. He had this album that was super pop culture-y about his breakup with his wife or whatever, and like it blew up. Radioactive by Imagine Dragon also came out.
I was talking about Radioactive, by the way, not the Blurred Lines.
Okay, yeah, that song was huge. I need to hear that Lil Wayne.
No, Blurred Lines is fucking awful, and it got overplayed. Like, I remember being at the bowling alley and I would hear that song 9 times in an hour. It's fucking awful. But yeah, problematic as fuck, would never be played today.
Yeah. And then 2014, the big songs that started 2014 were Happy by Pharrell Williams. I really don't know how to pronounce his name.
Pharrell, I think.
And Dark Horse by Katy Perry, a, vanilla
Also
song.
has a sleeper ass remix with a Juicy J verse that became problematic last year because of Jeffrey fucking Dahmer.
Oh yeah, Eat My Heart like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the song? No, Juicy J. I'm getting confused. One of the members of 3 6 Mafia, I don't remember if it was Juicy J or Project Pat, was on one of these little pop culture songs. Maybe with I think it was the Miley Cyrus song. I think he was in We Can't Stop. I think it was Project Pat. And
No, it was either DJ Paul or Juicy J, but I think that was no, it was Juicy J too. He was also on 23.
in that song, one of his lines is, "It ain't a strip club if they ain't showing pussy." And
That's 23. But I used to that was one of the when Mike Will made it got big as a producer.
mm-hmm.
That was one of the ones. Yeah, he hit the strip club. Yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about. Yeah, Juicy J was hitting all the pop star verses at that point in time.
Right. I feel like I remember that. But so basically, every song was vanilla pop star white girl with a black guy rapping for 20 seconds. And you had your formula, nothing changed. The biggest artist at the time for the rock movement was Mumford and Sons, which is as like
makes me so fucking angry.
Stale cracker as it can get. Justin Timberlake, who, boy, just the icon of mediocre white men. Then Katy Perry, Lady Gaga. That was also the year that Miley Cyrus twerked at the VMAs. I don't know if you remember this. Yeah, you probably do.
Yes, I do.
And like, it was funny at the time. And like, there was a lot of talk about how she was getting out of her shell and she was a Disney star exploring herself, and all that stuff's important. But she was appropriating Black culture on an extreme level and just getting away with it on it. And like, nobody checks her still today. I don't see it. I think that and again, this was the early, like, second sexual revolution. And I support all that, but you can do it in your own lane. And that's really what I'm talking about here is like, by 2014, 15, we had started to become a little bit more aware of like holding two thoughts at once. Like, you couldn't just be a woman empowering moment. You had to be aware of what was around you. You couldn't be a icon of any minority and be homophobic and get away with it. There was all these different rules. And obviously, it's not our place to police this. We found our lane too, as far as only discussing this and supporting this, but it's just interesting how much things changed over the last 10 years. The biggest movies that year, I think that was where it really hit me, like how like monocultural we were to one group. So Hunger Games peaked that year. The biggest Hunger Games movie came out that year. Iron Man 3. And then the two movies that probably sum it up the best are Frozen, which Frozen's a good movie. I always support Frozen, but it is just about two white ladies trying to fall in love with a white dude. And like, even Disney wouldn't do that anymore because it has no diversity. It has no representation. And I get it. It's a very empowering movie for women. It changed the way that we tell stories about women. It wasn't just love at first sight. I get it. And that's important along the line. But today, we're just a different society. And like, I think that that's really important to recognize that we've changed so much.
Well, I think that we were at the peak. And then at 2013 going into 14, we were at the peak of homogeny. And I don't mean in a good way. I just mean everything was just blah, throw it up there, keep it safe. It works. It's formulaic. We hit play, we get the view. That's how it goes.
I agree with you completely.
Very shortly after, we have the dark side of what your point is here that I'll let you get to in just a second. But we have something called forced perspective that's about to come in and change everything.
Yep. I think that's it's interesting how long we had gotten away with it and how big it had grown. Like, obviously, there was a power struggle that went one way. And the big thing you hear today that's been lost because of our, I don't know how to say it, pockets of culture where nobody agrees with everything. You can call it outrage culture, whatever you want to call it. People, the common saying is that we've lost the art of comedy, that comedy's gone for what it is. Animal House would never come out today. Caddyshack would never come out today. all these movies that were too problematic. And that year was the last year of the super white, super offensive. Not the last year, because we'll get to that in a second. But that was the year that This Is the End came out. This Is the End was an apocalyptic comedy by Seth Rogen about how the actors themselves would act when the apocalypse happened. And it starred James Franco, who was canceled during Me Too for multiple sexual assault, misconduct allegations. Aziz Ansari, who also had allegations against him, and a few other people that obviously had become too powerful and had taken over a certain lane. And it's just interesting how those movies were made. Even in the time, Emma Watson complained about the being on set being uncomfortable for her. And if that happened today, the movie's over.
Damn. All right, man. Well, it sounds like you got a lot to say about this, and I don't want to wrap you up, but we are getting a little long-winded. My laptop's fixing to die, and we've recorded a whole nother podcast. So I think we'll bring this back up again on maybe we'll do a two-parter this week if you want to catch another day this week. But
good.
For now, I really like your idea, and I'm excited to see what you do with them in the group.
All right. Sounds good.
All right, guys. Well, thank y'all for joining us. If you made it this far, as always, I'm Andy, and that's Josh. And this has been another episode of the Battleground of Bad Opinions podcast.